passcode for the regular Powhatan, Powhatan 1776. 1770. Jim's trying to get on that one. We do.
It doesn't work.
Oh, it doesn't work. Oh, mine's work. Powhatan 1777.
I got on the new
77. Powhatan 1777.
Joey's coming right behind him.
How much did Roseanne Smith
Appreciate you.
do
That's not right.
Let me take a look, because I just think that was the nicest thing ever.
Survive.
Mhm.
It's her idea.
Okay, good. That's awesome.
I don't know if it was totally her idea, but she was one of the driving forces, yeah.
That's terrific. That's all I wanted to know.
Yeah, try signing into that one, VB Wi-Fi.
Well, I tried deleting it and then,
Yeah, that looks right.
I deleted it and then,
Okay.
try again. Because I was on it last week, last month.
Yeah, it should be working. It's the new one. Tried this one, I guess.
I may have been last or not one, everybody else ready? All right, I'll call to order this April 16th, 2019 School Board Workshop. Ms. Wilson, if you'll let the minutes reflect that all members of the school board are present this evening, along with Dr. Jones and our student liaison, Ms. Winnell. That takes us to the approval of the agenda. Do any members have changes necessary to the draft agenda for the workshop for the evening? Any members have changes? If there are none, is there a motion to approve the draft agenda as presented?
I make a motion, we accept the agenda.
Have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor of approving the draft agenda, please respond with aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Takes us to the public comment period for our workshop. This is an opportunity for individuals or delegations wishing to address the board to be heard. There's a time limit of 3 minutes per individual or 5 minutes per group, with a total time limit of 30 minutes. We would ask that the speakers address their comments to the board as a whole and to identify themselves by name and address, please. Public comment period is open. Once again, public comment period is open. All right, seeing no movement, I'll bring public comment period to a close. Takes us to our first presentation of the evening, Dr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First item is a presentation on innovation of our schools, or in our schools, excuse me. And this is a presentation in line with our new strategic plan, which has innovation featured prominently. Dr. Alejandro is going to take us back to last August and kind of work through some of the highlights of some innovative practices and groups that we've become a part of over this past year. Dr. Alejandro?
Great, thank you, Dr. Jones. As Dr. Jones mentioned, we do have innovation as part of our tagline. Inspiring, empowering, and innovating is our tagline, and you're going to hear a little bit more later today about some teachers who are inspiring and empowering, so I'm glad to share some innovation with you at the workshop today. This is a quote that I think is always interesting to revisit as we're talking about innovation. This is a quote from the early 20th century by John Dewey. If we teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow. And I think that speaks to what we are charged with as educators, is to make sure that we are continuing to teach students in a way that is relevant for them, which pushes us to this innovation that I'm going to discuss more today. What is innovation? This has been a hot topic for us within the division. We have used this term, and the question is, what is innovation? And it is a little bit different for everybody. I'll talk a little bit later about some of our innovation committees at the schools. We as an instructional team have been wrangling with what the term innovation means. Each of the schools' innovation committees have been wrangling with what that term means. So I thought I'd break it down to what Merriam-Webster says. And Merriam-Webster says it's the introduction of something new, or a new idea, method, or device. And so I'm going to use that as we capture innovation in our schools. A little bit about why we're discussing it. Again, as Dr. Jones said, this is featured prominently in our strategic plan, specifically in Goal 1 of personalized learning. And 3 components of that goal speak to innovation: creating dynamic learning environments, leveraging technology that incorporate those 5 C's, which within Powhatan County is our DL 421 instructional framework, and then identifying opportunities for career awareness, exploration, and work experience. Those are all innovative practices that we seek to provide for our students. How we're doing these things is on several levels. First of all, we've got some regional collaboration that I'll share with you. We have an ongoing summer support for our instructional team called the Curriculum Closeup that I'll discuss a little bit more, as well as some consortiums and cohorts of which we are members, and some professional development that we are working on. So starting with the regional collaboration, each of us, our school division rather, is a member of Region 1, as you all know, and we are members of several subgroups within the region that allow us to share practices. So for example, in the area of instruction, our specialists meet regularly with other Region 1 history specialists and English specialists to discuss practices, as well as an assistant superintendent's instructional group that I meet with. We also have a professional development regional group that provides regional professional development where we can combine resources. So if we want a large presenter that one division may not be able to provide, this allows us to collaborate and provide stronger professional development as a region. We also are collaborating in special education as well as school counseling and support services that allows us to review the innovative practices of our neighbors and share in those areas. Grade Tech is a regional technical program or group that we work with, as well as there is a human resources regional collaboration. At the division level, the Curriculum Closeup really is our opportunity for us to meet as a group to discuss innovative practices. So each summer we get the entire instructional team together and we meet off-site to discuss things. As you'll remember, last year we kicked that off with What School Could Be. It's a book by Ted Dintersmith, and we did a book study to drive our original innovative practices. From there, each of our schools were charged with creating school-based innovation plans. They have created committees within their schools that meet to discuss what innovative practices look like and what their expectations are within the school buildings. If we are going to have innovation, Ted Dintersmith says we need to provide them, meaning the teachers, with the resources and support to do what they dream of doing. And as we have worked through this book, What School Could Be, and have discussed innovation, we really have come to the understanding that innovation happens at the grassroots level. It happens with the individual classroom teacher. It is not a top-down push to classroom teachers that they must innovate. It's providing them with the resources and the support so that they can do what they want to do to provide that innovation in their classrooms. So what are we doing to be able to provide that support? We are members of several ongoing groups and then have joined 2 new groups to provide some of that support for them. So the first group that we have been a part of for several years is the VTSS cohort. That's the Virginia Tiered System of Supports. And that is an innovative practice where we look at different ways of providing supports for students to be successful when they may not be successful in just the core instructional program that we provide. Dr. Massa, Dr. Martin, and Ms. Wojcicki recently presented our process because it has been so successful and innovative at state and regional meetings, and they will continue to do that because of the success of our program. The VASCL is the Virginia School Consortium for Learning. It was known as the VSUP, and that organization is a group of more than 60 public schools. We meet regularly in Charlottesville to discuss professional development and how to improve instruction. And from that group has sparked our most recent partnership of consortiums and cohorts. The first one I'll talk about is on the right-hand side, and that's the Virginia Learners Innovation Network. And that is a group that we made application for earlier this year, and they accepted 20 groups into this first cohort. We met originally in early March as a group of these cohorts. We have a team of 7 members from our school division. We went and received professional development on what innovation looks like. Again, Ted Dinnersmith was one of the speakers, as well as several other national groups. It is supported by ALP, which is a learning professional organization, as well as by the Virginia Department of Education. We will have ongoing meetings with a smaller group of regional schools, and we had our first walkabout within that region this past week, where we had a group of educators from Cumberland and Suffolk and Goochland and Petersburg come to visit our school division to see the different innovative practices that we have at the middle and the high school. And then we went and visited Goochland to see what kind of innovative practices that they are using so that we can get ideas from each other. And we will do a similar trip to Suffolk at the end of April. We also will be having Innovation Institutes again in July and October, where we meet with that large group of 20 school divisions, and then we will have a final closeout at the end of December. Again, it's really just a network for us to share innovative practices and to have the background and the wealth of knowledge from around the state so that we can make the best innovative practices within our division. Also, we joined EdLeader 21, which really is an online network. It's a national network, and that network allows us to provide professional development to our instructional leaders. It also provides support for activities that we're doing, following through with our strategic plan. It provides support for us as we develop our profile of a graduate. It provides professional development as we are working through how to implement the 5 C's with this new profile of a Virginia graduate that we've got. Professional development. So one of the things that we are excited about and is an innovative practice that we are working on within the division is our new summer programming for professional development. We, for years, have offered professional development as an option for our teachers if they wanted to come in and receive professional development outside of the regular contractual hours. So this year we have expanded it, and we are hosting our first Empower Powhatan conference, and it will be August 8th at the middle school. We have over 60 presenters, groups of presenters that are coming from not just teachers within our school division, but also nationally recognized teachers throughout the region and the state. We will be inviting, or have invited, any educator from Region 1 and Region 8 to come participate in this, and we've already had over 200 registrations for this conference, not just from within our school division. So we're very excited about this, and we are covering everything from grade band professional development, so items that would appeal to K-2 teachers, 3-5 teachers, middle school teachers, high school teachers, things around CTE, things around social and emotional learning. So all sorts of different activities that will meet the needs of our staff where they are. And this is one of the things that we showcased when we had our visitors come last week to visit us, was just what we are already doing within our buildings. And I think it's a pretty impressive list, and it's not exhaustive. As I put this together, more and more items kept coming to me to say, what are we doing that's innovative? I missed out on our kindergarten pre-K screening that we do, which is extremely innovative, that we started several years ago, is not included in this list. So this is not a comprehensive list, but it is a list of innovative practices that we have already. So anything from the flexible seating that you most recently have heard about in a presentation here, to our innovation lab that is being implemented by Danya Spot at the middle school, the launch projects that are a pilot that we've got going on at the high school level for our upper level CTE students, the maker spaces at both the middle and the high school, and then how that's being implemented at the elementary level. Our STEM coaches, which is a component of our K-12 STEM initiative. All of these things are innovative practices that we have within the division, of which we are very proud.
Questions from the board or comments for Dr. Alejandro?
I have a couple, Mr. Chairman.
Mrs. Emel.
Okay, so on slide 11, Dr. Alejandro, it says, so the conference is going to be region, I guess, sponsoring, or from Region 1 and Region 8?
No, what we did was we felt like we were already going to offer this to our teachers. But we were so excited about it, and we have talked regionally, again, when I mentioned some of those regional organizations, about what we could do that we could share professional development around the region. And especially when we've got small school divisions who may not have large central office staffs that can provide professional development, how can we provide something that will meet the needs of some of these smaller divisions? So we took it upon ourselves to say, well, we'll get the ball rolling and we'll start it. So we are going to offer it to any educator within Region 1 or Region 8 who wants to participate. There is a small fee, but it includes lunch for them. And we hope to see as many educators from around the region as are able to join us.
And so what region is Region 8?
Region 8 would be Cumberland, Amelia.
West and south of us. So Cumberland all the way to Prince Edward, and then down to Southside
So
Virginia.
this whole area?
Yep.
Okay.
And we know that some of them are already close to being in session at that time. We needed to make it to meet our needs, but we have received a commitment from several of those Region 8 divisions that they are going to send some of their teachers to this for us.
Okay, and the other question on slide 10, the webinars that you mentioned for the professional development, are those for the teachers as well, or is that just for the central office, or the curriculum? What do you call your team? Your
Instructional team.
Instructional team. That's what.
They're largely designed for the instructional team, so at the leadership level, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, other questions or comments?
Just a comment.
Mrs.
Thank you
Ayers.
so much, that this is just so exciting. And, I mean, this is what's so great about being in education, because you see, I read the book this past summer, and it takes a group of people that are actually brave enough to implement some of these things. Because the whole time I was reading that book, I was like, that's great, but, you know, from the, like you said, from the top down, sometimes if you don't teach the way, thank you, Dr. Jones.
Oh.
Thank you to everybody, because I know
Everybody.
it's not just, you
Right.
know, one or two people, but it's a group of people, and it really is exciting, and I'm glad to be on the school board in a county that's brave enough to take that step and become an example for other people to follow, because we've needed it for a long, long time. So thank you all.
All right, other questions or comments? Mr. Cole.
Dr. Alejandro, I too am delighted to see the things that we're involved in, and I hope we're involved to a level that is actually making an impact on students in the classrooms. That's the bottom line, is if we can impact learning, and I think you're absolutely right. Some of the best things that come out of education come out from the teachers who are working in classrooms. They figured out a way to do something, and this looks like it's going to provide a method or a structure for them to share some of the good things they're doing within their classrooms with other people, and I applaud that. You mentioned that the Empower Conference had a lot of different presentations. You said CTE in particular. I hope there's some things for fine arts and PE and world languages, because they seem to get left behind in a lot of these, or left out a lot of our professional development. So I hope there's a real emphasis on making sure that we have some things available for those disciplines.
So one of the things that we did when we reviewed the proposals, because we did request proposals for each of the sessions, so each person who wanted to provide a session had to fill out a Google form that talked about who their audience was, what their topic would be, what kinds of strategies they would be providing to teachers. And we found that actually most of the sessions were not content specific. A lot of them were really larger strategic opportunities for teachers to look at how do you incorporate a Google virtual tour into your classroom, or how do you use a Socratic seminar within your classroom. So those kinds of things that could be applicable across content areas, which we felt like that was important, because so many times we feel like we're talking about word study that's specific to a K-2 elementary school teacher. So this is a broader opportunity. So you're not going to see many specific things that say PE, but you are going to see things that talk about emotional wellness or health, things that they can adapt within their classroom, or technology, things that they may want to be using within their classroom as well.
And they'll be able to use the flexible seating. I see you're having it at the middle school.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, they
bring
will.
all the flexible seating in the rooms you're using, and yeah. And speaking of from bottom up, I really appreciate being included last summer, Dr. Jones, in getting the book and reading the book, because there was things for us to look at, as well. So, and, so if you're having another book study, I appreciate that.
I think we are. We talked about that today. I think we're going to focus this summer's curriculum close-up around assessment practices and how to properly assess students for 21st century deeper learning. And there's a couple good books that we're going to review. And so as soon as we decide on one or two, we may offer some options to the group. Then we'll make sure we get it to you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, other comments or questions? All right, thank you, Dr. Almondra. Dr. Jones?
Thank you. Second presentation this afternoon is a capital projects update. Dr. Tibbs is here to give the board an update on our train performance contracting work that has been going on for the past 6 or 8 weeks, as well as progress on the Pocahontas Middle School repurpose. Dr. Tibbs?
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Good to be here with you again to give you an update on capital projects. We haven't had any. We've had a little work going on behind the scenes, but it's good to give you some information about what we do have going on. The first slide this afternoon is a project schedule for the train performance contract. If you recall, last month, this type of presentation in a brief amount was given to you, and it had some information about the water improvements that were done. All of that scope of the project has been completed in terms of putting in new aerators and putting pedal valves in and new toilets in some of our older schools and things of that nature. So all of that has been done. So this project schedule is from here forward with the lighting, the building envelope, and the major mechanical that is a huge part of this project, which is a lot of what we wanted to make sure that we covered. With the lighting upgrades, Pocahontas Elementary School was our first big major one that we wanted to tackle, and so Pocahontas Middle School was done over the past several weeks. We do have a couple of items that we have met today, and there were some things that were ordered, materials and supplies that were ordered, but when they got up on the ladders and started looking at fixtures, they need to do some additional retrofitting and some additional fabricating of some metal and things of that nature. So Pocahontas Elementary is not totally done. Some of the can lights in the hallways, some of the up lights in the main hall and in the library, some of those things still need to be done. But in the majority of the building, in terms of classrooms, hallways, things of that nature, those items have been done. The cafeteria and the gymnasium was scheduled to be done this week. However, those new fixtures have not come in. And so as soon as they come in, they're going to flip back over to Pocahontas Elementary and get that taken care of. They started yesterday at Powhatan Elementary School, and started in the back hallway and coming down some of the classrooms there. One of the things I added in here is a nice quote. Shortly after Mrs. McHugh's classroom was done, she emailed me early on a Saturday morning and just was raving about the new lights. And she quoted what one of her first graders said and walked into the classroom and said, our room looks so good, I can see everything. So I thought that was really cool. So one of the things that Train is doing throughout this whole project is providing me with a Dropbox location where they are taking before and after pictures. So that is what these next two slides include. And so you'll see they've got before and after pictures of, on the left side of the slide are can lights, some of the can lights that they were able to do. And on the right side are the exit lights. As you know, exit lights are required and they have to stay lit up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it looks really nice to go away from the old boxy style look to real nice LED fixtures. And then this next slide just kind of gives you an idea on the left side, a before picture of a classroom and then an after picture of a classroom. And so you can see we're going from a dull yellow with the fluorescent lights that we currently have in the majority of the schools to a very bright white light. Even though it is a very bright light, it is not an overly powering type of light. It's very sensitive in terms of it doesn't do your eyes too bad. We also are doing a configuration in the classrooms. If you recall, we did a mock-up in every elementary school classroom. And so all of the elementary school classrooms are being wired in the same manner across the school. And so one switch will work for Pocahontas Elementary, one switch works the first and third row of lights, and then the second switch will work the second and the fourth row of lights. So the teacher can have variety in terms of whether they want them all on at one time or whether they just want to have half of them on. The reason we did it that way is because all of the classrooms have mounted projectors, and having that first row of lights out provides for some of the lighting to be dark where the projectors are projected on the screen, so those students sitting in the back of the classroom can see what's being projected on the screen fairly well. The middle picture is one of the safety features that Train puts in every classroom when they are working. It's their lockout tagout system. And so when they go into the classroom, if they are working in that classroom, they put this locking mechanism on the light switches so that if a staff member is there after hours and they walk into their room and they think, well, somebody's turned my lights out, I'm gonna flip them back on. That ability is not there if they are in there actually working. They've got these lock-in mechanisms on those switches so they can't turn them on. Okay, Pocahontas Middle School repurpose. We have been diligently working on this project. The biggest item is a roof replacement. We had two proposals that we received on March the 25th. We started very early on as soon as the project was released to us and approved by both you and the County Board of Supervisors. Started early on with hiring a consultant to look at the roof and to provide us with a scope of the project and help us with bidding that out and so forth. And so we worked through the winter to get all that information straight, get the drawings together, and we started with the bid process probably towards the middle of February. And so that bid process took place. We got the bids in. We only received 2 on March the 25th. At the pre-bid meeting, we had 9 companies present. But then when it came time to receive the bids, we received 2. One company from North Carolina, the other company here from Richmond. We then went back to Roof Consulting Services and said, can you work on getting us a best and final offer? So we worked on that and got that back on April the 5th. After reviewing that best and final offer, we still are not content with what we received back, and so we have rejected those bids, and we are putting it back out to bid. And so it is going to go in the newspaper this Sunday for anybody who is interested in bidding. The scope of the work has been adjusted, as well as some other factors such as the length of the time that they are allowed to complete the project, and liquidated damages have been removed. Some of those things that may deter a contractor from even wanting to place a bid because they may not be big enough to be able to take on a project of that size. So we've pulled some of that back out in hopes that we can then get some additional bids to come in. The interior design, the construction drawings were received on March the 26th. I've been meeting with some contractors to discuss that scope of the work. I've received some of those bid information, some of those quotes back from those contractors. But right now, when I get them, I'm telling them, I've got it, but I got to sit on it because I need to get the roof contract under my belt first before I can then start to release other folks to do work within the building, since that's the biggest piece of that puzzle. This is a picture of what is currently there. You'll see these 3 spaces. We, as in myself and my staff, went in, spent a number of days getting the building down to bare bones. And so each occupied space that we are looking to repurpose for school administration staff has been completely stripped. All the white erase boards, all the old chalkboards, all of that stuff is gone. If you recall, when you walked through that building, there were hanging old TVs in every corner. All of that has been removed. And so everything is completely gone, and it's ready for contractors to begin work when we are able to release them to do that. Any questions?
Questions or comments for Dr. Tibbs?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Cole.
Mr. Tibbs, how much of the roof were we proposing to replace? Can you give me some idea?
We originally did the entire roof.
Okay,
That was the original bid.
Okay.
And when we looked at putting some budget numbers together, the original scope of the work included removing the EPDM that's there and repurposing as much as we could and putting a new EPDM down. When the bids went out, what their proposal was to strip everything off to the roof deck. So removing all the insulation that's there, good or not, all the way down to the roof deck, and then coming back with brand new insulation and coming back with brand new roof. And so what I asked them to do after we got that initial bid and saw what those numbers came back as, I asked them to do an infrared survey, which is where they go in and they look at the moisture that could be on the roof or within the insulation under the roof. And they did that. And what they found is that there is a large amount of that current insulation that we can reuse and we can keep on the roof and not have to strip it off, therefore giving us some cost savings.
So we still do not have a firm plan on vast portions of that building.
Correct.
But yet, at this point, we're looking at replacing the whole roof. And has there been any consideration to pulling that back some and replacing
Yes.
only the parts of the roof that we need to
Correct.
that we need to work in at this point?
And that is what this new bid is going to do. This new bid pulls out any of the sections that we are not occupying, and it's only doing the sections that we and the county are occupying in terms of the gym space,
good.
and including only those spaces in this bid. That's the lump sum of this new bid that's going to be put out, and then alternative is going to be those areas that we are not occupying. That way, if we do have some money and there's an area that's been giving me some trouble that I've had to patch leaks or whatever the case may be, I then may be able to grab some of them and include them. But right now, we're looking at just a bid on the occupied sections.
I'm glad to hear that. I am, as one board member, still concerned about how we're going to resolve the issue of ownership of that building and the pieces that we don't need and don't see a foreseeable use for.
Right.
At some point in the near future, I'm hoping we're going to be able to come to some resolution with that. And, I know that in the short term, we're just going to have to maintain what we have because there's no money for demolition or anything like that. But, I know this board has talked about, when do we, how much of this do we own and how much do we turn back over to the Board of Supervisors? And I don't think the supervisors are very anxious to take it, and I don't blame them. But nonetheless, at some point, the county is going to have to come to grips with that building.
And to that point, what we have done, and this would align with hopefully what we're going to do with the roof, the train project that we're in the middle of originally included outfitting or retrofitting every light fixture throughout the whole building. We've now gone back and redacted some of that and said, no. Areas that we're not using, let's not spend the money and put LED fixtures in there. That way, that will give us some savings, additional savings within that, because as you know, there are mechanical issues with that building. We have 2 different systems there, and part of the architect's drawings and architect designs is we did a mechanical study, and that mechanical study came back to say that there is capacity within the newer system to tie the older system into it and be able to run that whole building on that newer chiller and boiler system. And so we're looking at all of those possibilities, and I agree with you. I mean, and we all agree with you in terms of why spend the money on an area that we are right now just going to use for either storage or it's just going to sit there, when we can use that money to make what we're going to be using very effective for everybody who's going to be there.
Thank you for helping with that.
Dr. Jones.
Thank you, sir. I think also we're working with the county on an MOU.
Absolutely.
That we'll bring back to the board for their consideration. That may not answer all the questions about ownership, but at least of the existing buildings, of splitting utilities and use and cleaning services and those times, will clear up some of those questions, at least for the occupied portions. I agree with you, Mr. Cole. We still need to determine what we're going to do with the unoccupied portions of the building, but at least it will tie up some of those loose threads for the occupied areas.
I appreciate that. I want to spend minimal money on what we don't, on
Right.
areas we don't know. I know we don't want to create a liability, but at the same time, we don't want to spend any more than we have to on pieces that may eventually be demolished.
Right, and that was our original thought when we looked at if we could do the whole roof, it would at least preserve that building more so that we didn't have leaks in areas where we weren't every day that would degrade the building even more and make it even, if we did want to use it, it would cost even more money. So, but unfortunately, that's not the case, so we're moving on to Plan B and focusing on the areas that we are going to use.
Thank you.
And to add to Dr. Jones's point, I've met with the county, met with them last week. They actually are going to be taking control of the gym building May 1st. They talked with Ramona Carter today. She actually has a meeting set up on Thursday with Mr. Sneed to walk through that gym space so they can talk specifics about the museum part of it, because that's going to be over in the gym building, so that is going to be taking place on Thursday.
This coming Thursday?
This coming Thursday. As Dr. Jones said, we have worked on an MOU. We have a draft at this point. It is her feeling, and I agree with it, that she, or the county, is going to want to do some sort of lease agreement. Not that we're going to be charging them for that building or whatever, but they have done the very same thing with the free clinic, because the feeling is if they are putting money into repurposing and getting it to where they need it, then there needs to be some sort of lease agreement. So that will be forthcoming at some point shortly after the MOU. But the MOU will solidify exactly what their responsibilities are and exactly what our responsibilities are as a school division for that piece of the building.
And that's a document for us to take a look at, right?
Absolutely.
That's what
Yeah.
we're saying?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so let me ask you a question. I'll tell you, before I ask this, are there other comments about that particular part of the discussion or questions? I've got a question about another comment that you made a little earlier in your presentation.
I do, but I
Mrs.
can wait.
Engel, I just didn't want to take us too far away from
Oh,
this discussion.
okay, all right.
I apologize.
That's all right. I met with the Powhatan NAACP Education Committee last week, and they were concerned about, I guess they're not, it's not going as fast as they would like. But so I'm glad to hear they're meeting this Thursday, because they told me they want to be great partners with the county and the school system. They just want their hallway, the band room, and then that little plaque or statue that was going to go in the front. So those were the three things that, they wanted to know about. So I'm glad they're doing that. I love the attention to detail that you're doing. But I'm also concerned, I don't know who's going to be the lucky people to have the offices in the art room. Do we know about that yet? Or is it too soon to know? Oh, we haven't done interior, right?
Correct.
Is that, okay, then
Right.
never mind, I'll save that question. Okay, now, speaking of the toilets, in the main office there, did you change that preschool baby toilet? Because the poor women that had to work there at the middle school, and that's why I think our own Dr. Prince is in such good shape. So did we change that one?
They put new toilets in. Now, they are
Adult size?
They are not ADA compliant, so to speak. They put back in there what was back in there, but that does not mean that we cannot go back in there and make any adjustments that need to be made.
Okay, well, I'm thinking of our future women that are going to be in there. Okay, and, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
All right, other questions or comments? Can you go back to a statement you made that in the new, you said you put this back out for bid. In the new proposal, or request for proposals, you removed language associated with liquidated damages.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no liquidated damages contemplated for the potential bidders?
The initial bid put a 90-day timetable on it and had liquidated damages after that 90 days. We feel like that would deter some folks, but we also changed the time span and put 180 days on there. So we gave it a 6-month time span and took the liquidated damages away.
We took the liquidated damages away in the original proposal, but as part of the final negotiation, once we determine what that time frame is within the 180 days, and we come to an agreement, then there will be liquidated damages that
Okay.
both sides will agree on.
Right.
But instead of dictating those on the front end, which
Okay,
we
I'm-
felt may have
that's
deterred
different.
some
All right.
people,
Yep.
we'll negotiate that with them. But there will be LDs in the final portion.
Yes, because the consultant, in my conversation with him, I was very alarmed. You had 9 companies come to a pre-bid conference, and then we only got 2. We were feeling very optimistic after having 9 companies come that we would maybe get half, 4 or 5. Then we only got 2. So in my conversations with him, I asked him, what do you think deterred some folks? His comment was, he had a conversation with some folks off the record, and that they did not feel like it was going to benefit them to put in a bid for 2 reasons. One, the timetable of 90 days was too short of a timetable for them to be able to do a project of that size. 2, the liquidated damages was a deterrent. And then 3, they were very concerned about one of the companies that was present at that meeting evidently is a lowballer and comes out and underbids everybody. So they didn't want to exhaust the energy and the effort to put in a bid.
Okay.
Are they allowed to ask you
Ms.
questions? I'm sorry, are they allowed to ask you questions before they put in their bid? Isn't that what the meeting's about?
Well, that pre-bid meeting is just an opportunity to look at the drawings and look at the documents and then do a site survey as well. So we went on the roof and they were able to see all the roof sections. They were able to see what the roof was comprised of. Because seeing it with your eyes is a lot different than seeing it on
Sure.
paper. And so then after that meeting, they are allowed to propose questions or to ask questions, but the questions are asked collectively and they are addressed to everybody so that everybody can see the dialogue that's taking place. So that if Smith Roofing, for example, I don't know if that's a company or not, but if Smith Roofing was maybe wondering about it, but they didn't feel like they wanted to ask a question, maybe we would answer that question
Okay.
for them. But yes, they are able to ask questions
Okay.
up until 5 days before the bids are due.
Thank you.
All right, other questions or comments?
So
Mr. Colvin?
based on a roof issue, is there a new timetable that we are proposing, or are we just waiting till we get the roof resolved?
Yeah, we really need to wait till we get that resolved, but hopefully, we bid this out for 30 days, I think.
The bids are due, it will go in the paper this Sunday, and they are due back May the 8th.
Okay, so quicker turnaround. So at that
Yes.
point, we'll know better. We'll do some final negotiations with the preferred bidder, and hopefully we can get the ball rolling. We're hitting a good time of year to be doing roofing projects, so hopefully we can get back on schedule, especially if we're doing a smaller portion of the roof and not the entire building and facility.
All right. I have a question for you, Dr. Tibbs. How do we have it noted over there at that structure that school is closed?
There are signs on the door.
Is
There are
is that the only thing we have?
That's the only thing.
And there are no staff that are there during the workday other
No.
than, I suppose,
Now, when we start
coming
having
and going?
contractors there, I will probably station myself over there because I'm sure there will inevitably be questions or concerns or things like that. But at this point, there's 2 signs on the front door. Actually, when central office staff went over there, Ms. Wilson made 2 signs because I think she had a lot of people come in the front door because they saw cars there. One directing folks to the elementary school behind there that don't know that it's there, and then the other one directing folks to Powhatan Middle School.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was wondering about, because it's very visible there from Route 60.
Yes.
Have we had any problems at all?
We have not. And we're over there on a regular basis. The reason that the county hasn't been able to get in there until May 1st is because we have had some community groups that have been using the gym space. Pickleball has been in there during the day. They're in there 3-4 days a week, maybe. And then adult education has been using that gym. The YMCA used the gym. So we felt like that we needed to fulfill the obligations we had with those organizations, have a clean cutoff. That way, when the county took it over, they could then have contractors and folks go in and do what they needed to do. And then it would be, they would then be responsible for the scheduling and things of that nature. But we have not had any problems whatsoever. We're over there on a regular basis, walking the building and doing various things in the building. Currently, I actually have train in the back side of the building because that's their drop zone and their inventory and supplies are all there. There's 2 Connex boxes where the old loading dock used to be that they are storing all of their supplies. And I felt that was a better place to put them as opposed to putting a Connex box at the high school, which we really don't have space for, or putting a Connex box at Powhatan or elementary school, which again, we don't have space for. And so they meet there in the afternoon, they do their sign-in, they do all their safety PPE work, and they get their materials, and they go to whichever school site that they are located at. So there's activity in and around the building pretty much on a daily basis.
All right, so the structure is effectively mothballed at this point while we work through some of these issues. Is your staff doing the routine sort of maintenance, checking the
Yes.
water, that sort of thing?
Yes.
I'm sure we heated it in the wintertime.
We put set points at a very low minimum to be as efficient as we possibly could
Okay.
on both the heating side and on the cooling side. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, and earlier in your presentation, I heard a discussion. It seems like we're moving towards perhaps very clearly using some portions of this building, and other portions may stay mothballed based on what you're describing. Can you provide us with sort of an updated version of what this is going to look like?
Absolutely.
From your terms of the changes you're making and the improvements you're doing? Because we're quickly going to have one section or sections of that building that are going to be in pretty good shape, and other sections that are going to be, they're not.
Right.
And I just would think that would be helpful to us to sort of know well where those lines are going to be.
Okay. I will tell you the Christmas Mother has moved. Christmas Mother moved from the band room. We temporarily had them in the band room for this past season because they could not be at the armory. They have officially moved into the cafeteria. So all of their belongings are now in the cafeteria. We have changed the locks on the doors to where they're actually on the key. It says CM for Christmas Mother. So they are the ones who have the key. I have a key. And Loretta at the front desk at Central Office has a key in case one of my guys needs to get in there. But we have moved them into their space. They haven't set it up, but all of their belongings are in that space. They are elated.
That's why we haven't heard from them. Wonderful.
That's why you have not heard from them, yes.
I've heard from them, and they are very, very excited. They are so happy.
Yes.
They
Yes.
feel like they're finally have a home, and that's really a good thing.
Yeah. But I can absolutely do that and provide you with the sections that we are using and who's going to be where, things of that nature.
Okay. All right. Other questions or comments? All right. Thank you, Dr. Tibbs.
You're welcome.
All right. Next item on our agenda, Dr. Jones, I believe. is
Yes,
the School Board
just
Association.
one item for a report. This is to receive information. These are the next batch of policy updates. And we will be looking for approval or to answer questions on specific policies at the May 14th meeting. So this is a list of the next batch of policies, and there's a summary cover sheet there that Dr. Parker has prepared along with Ms. Wilson, and as well as the policies themselves in a PDF, which you're welcome to look over, and they're also in the draft of the policies tab at the top of board docs for your review. If you have any questions prior to May 14th, we are happy to answer those questions. Dr. Parker would be your point of contact for that if you have any questions about those policies.
Are there any discussion of this report?
One general
Mr.
comment,
Cole.
Mr. Chairman. I am a little concerned about us changing will to shall and year after year. I mean, I would think after 3 or 4 years, we've changed all the wheels to shall we need to, but, you know, there's so many of these policies that there are 2 words that are changed in. Is that a question that we should ask the Virginia School Board Association about in terms of, is this mandated by the legislature, or is this just somebody at VSBA that's looking for something, you know, hate to say it, but looking for something to do? You know,
Good question.
Dr. Parker, you have any insight on that?
I do. I asked that.
Step right up, Dr. Parker.
Can you step
Dr.
up to the
Parker, step up to the
microphone,
podium
Dr.
for us.
Parker?
And good evening, Dr. Parker, or good afternoon.
I did ask that exact question to Ms. Ewing, who does all of the policy updates, and her advisement was that they try to stay grammatically correct with their policies, but they do wait until it's the 5-year. By law, they have to review all of the policies every 5 years. And so they try to wait at that point unless it's a big grammatical error. But that's when they'll change the shalls. And she referenced that they've checked both APA format as well as, I think, another format that they try to follow. And they want to make sure that it's accurate.
I appreciate you asking the question. I'm not satisfied with the explanation, but I appreciate you asking the question, because my gut feeling is in 3 or 4 years, we'll change to something else and change all
Again.
that stuff back. You know, Valerie has certainly been around here long enough to see the language change a bunch of times. And even in the years I've been here, we've changed things back and forth. And you know, I'm not sure the public really cares one way or the other, but if we're paying for the service, that's fine. I just, you know, thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. Yes,
I have a
Mrs.
question,
Ayers.
just really, because I
Is
I
that
went
a
over.
question for Dr. Parker or Dr. Jones?
No,
Okay.
I guess, well,
ma'am.
just asking a question.
Sure. Okay.
I have like, which I think are 2 typos. Do I do it now, or do I should just say it later?
You can do it now.
I mean, okay, so in CBA, which is on page 3 of 42, and I may be totally wrong because I'm not a grammar professional, but the
ones
first,
we're approving tonight?
huh?
These are the ones we're approving tonight?
But these are the informational ones, but I figured if I could just
Okay.
tell you what they
That'd be
are,
helpful.
then somebody else won't take the time to write them down. The first line on that page 3, where it says implement school board policies and ensures that they pair posted on the school division's website instead of are.
Okay.
Do you see what that
Mhm.
is?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, and then policy GBI, page 18, just a question about the gifts and solicitations. It says that teachers, you know, won't request things from people, and I know that some teachers have, you know, wish lists, like, is that the same, is that forbidden by policy, or is that just kind of a gray area? I mean,
Well, yeah, I think the policy is intended to clear up that gray area. So
Okay.
that would be something that the board would need to consider, things like donor choose and those types of things.
Okay.
Maybe issues that we need to look into.
okay, so maybe that's a policy that we want to look a little closer at while we're reviewing these, because that does concern me. I mean, even a teacher's asking for boxes of tissues or crayons or whatever. I
Mhm.
mean, I don't like the idea that they are not able to do that. And then the last one is page 19 of 42, IGAE, which is, let me get to it real quick, which I also think is a grammatical, I'm not sure though, I'm not going to swear to it. It is the division, hang on just a second. Okay, the Powhatan County School Division provides program of physical activity. Shouldn't it say a program or programs? It says the division provides program
Yeah, she's right.
of physical activity. It's on page 19 of 42, and I think it's IGAE, and it's I don't know, it's the end, it's towards the end, right before where it says adopted. In that paragraph, it says the Powhatan County School Division provides program of physical activity. So I didn't know if that should be a program or programs. It just doesn't sound right to have program, but anyway, that's all. That's all.
Thank you.
I just didn't want other people
Yep,
to.
appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, because we have a lot of different programs. So
Right.
I would
Yeah, so-
think that it would be programs, yeah.
It just doesn't sound right.
No.
Provides program.
I agree with you.
Okay.
We'll take a look
thank
at
you.
it.
Thank you. That's all.
Geez, Miss Ayers, you're already on
I
the
know.
next group,
I
and
was
some of
bored.
us are
No.
just barely getting to this done. Congratulations.
I'm sorry. I didn't have to keep my grandchildren over spring break.
Oh,
I
but
had,
that, okay, then that would explain that,
I had
wouldn't it?
time.
Okay. All right, I was just reading page 18 again. I see what you're discussing.
Okay.
All right, so that takes us to the closed session, which is the next, unless there are other comments about the informational changes to policy. Takes us to the closed session. Mr. Cole, could I ask you, sir, if you would mind reading the certification, make the motion, take us into closed session?
Mr. Chairman, I recommend make a motion to enter into closed session pursuant to codes 2.2-3711A1 to discuss the employment, resignation, and leave of specific employees, pursuant to code 2.2-3711A2 and A4 to discuss the expulsion and school placement of specific students, codes 2.2-3711A7 to consult with legal counsel and briefings by staff members pertaining to actual or probable litigation, and pursuant to code 22-1-60.1 to discuss the evaluation of the division superintendent. So that's codes 2.2-3711A1, A2, A4, A7, and 22.1-60.1.
All right, is there a second to Mr. Cole's motion?
Second?
Motion is second. All in favor, please respond with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We are in closed session.